I have personally raised the issue, not only at the highest level that I have been involved with, but also through other intermediaries. So we don't have any meeting with anybody who has something to do with Iran or an approach to Iran where we don't talk to them about how we might be able to find not just Mr. Levinson, but we have two other Americans that we're deeply concerned about. I think the Iranian government has the ability to help us here, and we hope they will.
And that, of course, Secretary of State John Kerry in a new interview today, speaking about Robert Levinson, the American who has been missing in Iran for 7 years and has now been revealed to be a CIA contractor. Joining me now, Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff, member of the House Permanent Select Intelligence Committee and the Appropriations Committee. Representative Schiff, always good to see you. Thanks for joining me.
Good to see you.
So has Robert Levinson's case been handled correctly by the government?
Well, it certainly wasn't handled correctly from the outset, and it's astounding that you had this kind of, I can't even say botched operation, unauthorized operation, according to the press reports, where people whose job it was to analyze the intelligence were running their own operation. So it's, you know, unquestionable that there were terrible decisions made in the origins of this. Since that time, you know, I think the intelligence community has done its best to try to figure out where he might be, how we can secure his release. But there hasn't been much information, I think, over the years. His capture took place just before I got on the committee, and I'm not aware of a whole lot of new information that's been generated over the years. But I think the Secretary of State is exactly right. Whether it's Sergeant Bergdahl in Afghanistan or Mr. Levinson in Iran, we continue to press to try to find any of our people who are captured or go missing.
So your reaction to the story being published, and we should say it was held for 3 years by the authors of the article at the government's request because they thought that they would be getting new information, didn't want to compromise anything.
Well, it's very unusual to make an appeal to try to get someone released by a public demonstration that he was working for an intelligence community. That's not generally the kind of thing that helps you get released. And not surprisingly, the Iranian reaction has been, well, tell us just what kind of a mission he was on. But I can certainly see after, you know, the elapse of 7 years, if nothing else has worked, sometimes going public, raising the public awareness and attention to it might have an opportunity to break things loose that haven't been broken loose in the past. But I would say probably more than the public disclosure of this has been this new dialogue that we're having with Iran. That opens up a lot of possibilities that haven't been there before, and let's hope that it leads to his release.
Okay, let's move on, because I'd like to ask you about North Korea and the reports this week that Kim Jong-un had his uncle executed, perhaps the most second powerful man in the country. What's your interpretation of this?
My interpretation is that Kim Jong-un is not only ruthless, but looking to a lot of the family history where his father, grandfather, etc. have purged people, perhaps not as violently as this and not close family members. It also shows a certain dangerous, erratic nature of this young leader's behavior, which for a nuclear power is a grave concern. China obviously very worried because Zhang was one of the people they dealt with, one of the windows into that hermetic regime. So I think it's a really dangerous turn of events. We don't know much what it means, but I think it's safe to say that he is consolidating his power in the country, and that we can expect future dangerous, provocative, and erratic behavior by this young, untested leader.
Yeah. Other intelligence news to discuss with you, sir. The New York Times, I'm looking at this report today in which the title says, officials say the U.S. may never know the extent of Snowden's leaks. Do you agree with that assessment?
Unfortunately, I do agree with that assessment. I think we will ultimately know the most significant material that he stole because, frankly, it's being published by The Guardian, and they're not going to stop publishing it. So, unfortunately, we're going to find out the hard way just what he took. But there can probably be a large quantity of other information that perhaps the newspapers don't consider sufficiently provocative to publish that we may never know. He used different ways to hide his trail that I can't go into in detail, such that I don't think we'll ever have a really complete assessment. But, we have to plan for the worst.
But are you concerned about that? I mean, in this article, it talks about how to exploit the blind spots in these systems. I mean, these are top secret systems. He got in, did his thing.
I'm very concerned about it, and obviously he was able to do this because he understood the systems well. That was part of his job, but also in part because some of the protections that we were requiring to be put in place hadn't been put in place yet. They hadn't been fully implemented. So hopefully with some of those new protections, we can catch people that want to become a future Snowden. And this is one of the most grave concerns, and that is that you're going to have copycats. You're going to have people that want to aggrandize themselves or disagree on policy, who decide to take policy matters into their own hands by making these disclosures of classified information. That is probably the most significant threat, that he's going to inspire others. And we simply can't have a system where members of the intelligence community decide on their own to be policymakers and what's in the best interest of the country or the world to disclose. It's a grave concern, and I think is going to be a problem for us in the future.
Yeah. Finally, I want to talk to you about the budget, for which I know that you voted with though expressing some serious concerns, including the lack of extending the emergency unemployment benefits. Will there be an extension before December 28th?
Well, it's hard to see that happening. I guess it's theoretically possible. You could have the Senate move on that. You could have some kind of a unanimous consent provision in the House. But although it's theoretically possible, it's very unlikely at this point. The Senate President, Harry Reid, has said that he will take this up first thing in January. That's going to be too late for a great many families, but hopefully we can move that quickly in the Senate. We can take it up in the House. There are some chips that can be used to bargain for that. But it's terrible, I think, that we're going into this holiday season and millions of people are going to go without. And it's also going to dampen our economy. It's just bad economics every way you look at it.
Yep. I think you called it a lump of coal on the 28th anyway.
Yes, it is.
Representative Adam Schiff, thank you so much.